American and international journalists while he is slaughtering his own people. It only underscores how unfit he is to lead and how disconnected he is from reality.
To enforce sanctions against Libya, the Pentagon is repositioning forces near the North Africa coast as the US and its allies consider options surrounding a possible no-fly zone. The Pentagon doesn't name the assets being redeployed, but they're thought to be the aircraft carrier USS Enterprise and the amphibious assault ship USS Kearsarge, plus the command vessel USS Mount Whitney. Also Monday, the US Treasury froze $30 billion of financial assets controlled by Colonel Gaddafi and his family, held in US banks. The move was described by the White House as the largest single financial freeze in US history. John Terrett, AlJazeera, Washington.
Joining us from Dubai is Jennifer Rassami Manana. She's a spokesperson for the U.S. State Department. Thank you for talking to us on Al Jazeera. Let's first talk about the U.S. military deployment. Where is this headed?
We are repositioning some of our military assets closer to Libya in preparation for humanitarian relief. As you may know, the military played an important role in providing quick and effective assistance to earthquake victims in Pakistan, in Haiti, and in other places. And we're very focused right now on the humanitarian suffering that we're seeing taking place. So with members of the international community, with the Red Cross, with other organizations, with all of our partners, we're working very quickly to bring in the humanitarian assistance and getting it as quickly as we can to those who need it.
How does an aircraft carrier help humanitarian missions?
For example, aircraft carriers carry helicopters, and helicopters were one of the primary methods in previous crises of getting assistance as quickly as possible to those who need it.
Would the U.S. be willing to throw its weight behind this no-fly zone that's being talked about, that countries have been skirting around but not coming up with a conclusion?
I think Secretary Clinton was very clear in saying that we understand the urgency of the solution. We're horrified and appalled by what we see right now. And we're currently looking at all the options, studying all of the options in consultation with our international partners.
So when you talk of all options, it's something certainly that Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has said, as well as your President Barack Obama.
That's correct.
All options must include then military options. So are you moving towards the possibility of military intervention?
All options are on the table. I think we want to be very careful to have considered all sides. These are complicated issues. At the same time, we want to make sure that we're moving as quickly as we can to relieve humanitarian suffering. So our actions are taking place on a number of levels. We're imposing sanctions. We're consulting with our colleagues. We're moving multilaterally to suspend Libya's membership in the United Nations Human Rights Council, for example. We're looking at getting humanitarian assistance in as quickly as possible, and we're looking at longer-term options as well.
I'm very interested in this military buildup because, with all due respect, the U.S. won't act, and especially militarily, if the move is not in its national interests. So what's the U.S.'s aim here?
I think that we in the U.S., as have all of us throughout the world, have been incredibly moved by both the bravery of the Libyan people who have been fighting to be heard and to participate and to choose who leads them, and also been moved by the appalling violence and the bloodshed that we've seen that's been perpetrated by the Gaddafi regime. We are, along with the international community, committed to doing what we can to stop what's going on and to help the Libyans to build a better future.
Okay, the U.S., we also heard, Jennifer, that the U.S. is freezing $30 billion worth of Gaddafi's assets. Is the U.S. prepared to freeze any potential military deals that are in the pipeline with Libya?
One of the sanctions that we announced was a complete arms embargo, making sure that there would be no military transactions with Libya.
All right, Washington now ratcheting up the pressure, putting the financial and military pressure, as we're saying. Why didn't the U.S. speak out over this a couple of weeks ago when people were being slaughtered and killed by Gaddafi?
You know, I think that's an unfair characterization. We've been saying from the very beginning that we were extraordinarily concerned about what we saw, calling for Gaddafi to respect the rights of his citizens to protest peacefully. At the same time, we also, as does every government in the world, have an obligation to protect the safety of American citizens. We were certainly mindful of that and did what we can to evacuate our American citizens. But from the very beginning of the crisis, we've been very firm on expressing our belief that what's happening in Libya is wrong, and in working behind the scenes with our colleagues, speaking both privately and publicly about the need to move swiftly to put an end to this situation.
All right, Jennifer, talking to us from Dubai, thank you. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Well, Venezuela's president has proposed setting up an international commission that would travel to Libya to mediate a peaceful outcome to the ongoing strife. Hugo Chavez has also declared his loyalty to Gaddafi, saying he would not abandon his longtime ally.
Just because everyone says today that Gaddafi is a murderer, then Chavez has to say it too? I'm not convinced. I'm not going to condemn him from afar. That would be cowardly with someone who has been my friend and our friend for a long time without knowing what is happening in Libya. I'm not a coward. I'm not fickle.
Egypt's top prosecutor has imposed a travel ban on former President Hosni Mubarak and his family. He's also ordered a freeze on all their financial assets inside the country. Well, the unrest in North Africa and the Middle East appears to be having a ripple effect in Zimbabwe. Activists meeting to discuss protests in North Africa are being arrested in Harare. We'll have their story in a few moments. And New Zealand marks a week since the earthquake rocked the city of Christchurch. That's also coming up. Stay tuned.
Hello again. We've got lots of heavy thundery downpours with us in the States at the moment. On the satellite picture, you can see the cloud gradually marching its way up towards the northeast, but then you see plenty more in the way of heavy thundery downpours gradually crack off a little bit further south as well. Now, out of this system, we have seen some tornadoes as well, but it is slowly beginning to move away. I think by the time we get to Tuesday lunchtime, we'll just be dangling its feet here over parts of Florida and to the north. It should be fine. It should be fine, but it certainly will be very cold. Washington, D.C. this time no higher than around 10 degrees. Further west, the temperatures here have been very low recently as well, but they will be slowly recovering over the next few days. So I think for LA this time we'll get to around 18. Now, further south, there's plenty of sunshine to be found here, particularly over parts of Cuba, down through Haiti and the Dominican Republic. But elsewhere, there is more wet weather still on the cards, particularly here from parts of Nicaragua and then all the way down towards Colombia. And I think Colombia is going to be incredibly wet as we head through Tuesday and Wednesday. There could well be some flooding here. As we head across towards Europe, here it's generally a lot quieter, but it's cold as well. Look at the top temperature in Moscow, -12, and only around 7 there in London. The wet weather, well, that's mostly across the Mediterranean, very wet and windy.
He's taken stolen goods and he's now dumping them onto the world without any sort of consideration.